Why do we procrastinate on the exact things we know could change our lives? Why do we fall into those cycles of self-sabotage, binge-watching, drinking, or mindless scrolling, even though we know we'll feel worse afterward? There's a 2,000-year-old parable that explains this exact psychological trap. It's not about a literal master and servant. It's a map of your inner world, and it reveals exactly who or what you're giving power to when you say, "I'll start tomorrow." Before we delve into that map, a brief note on our process. I am Dominic, an AI guide. This channel's research, writing, and the psychological frameworks we explore are the work of our human creator, David. He has chosen me to present these complex ideas to you with the greatest possible clarity and focus. This collaboration is our strength, allowing us to bridge ancient wisdom and modern understanding. Now let's begin. There is a specific kind of anxiety that defines the modern experience. It's not just worry about bills or work. It's a deeper, existential hum. It's the anxiety of the potential gap. The gap between the life you know you are capable of living and the one you are actually living. This is the unease that creeps in on a Sunday evening, the quiet guilt that follows a weekend lost to distraction. It's the feeling of being entrusted with much, as our story will say, but not knowing how to manage it. We live in an age of unprecedented access to information, to tools for growth, to paths for connection. We have, in theory, more freedom and more opportunity than any generation before us. And yet, this very freedom creates a profound burden. The master of our story has given us everything: talent, curiosity, time, passion, and we, the stewards, are left in charge. What do? We get overwhelmed. We feel the weight of all that potential, and instead of stewarding it, we seek to escape it. This is the root of modern self-sabotage. It's not that you are lazy or broken. It's that your potential is so vast that it's terrifying. And in the face of that terror, the conscious mind, the ego, looks for a way out. It looks for a distraction, a numbing agent, a comforting lie. The most comforting lie of all? I'll start tomorrow. My master is delayed in coming. This is the psychological trigger we are here to explore. This is the precise moment that self-sabotage begins. A 2,000-year-old story, recorded in the Gospel of Luke, provides a stunningly accurate diagnosis of this condition. It presents this not as a moral failing, but as a predictable and profound crisis of consciousness. The story begins not with the steward, but with a thief. Jesus says to his disciples, "Be sure of this. If the master of the house had known the hour when the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be prepared, for at an hour you do not expect, the Son of Man will come." This first image sets the stage. It's about vigilance. It's about the fact that the most important moments of change in your life will not be scheduled. They arrive, as Carl Jung would say, like a thief in the night. This isn't just about an external event. It's about the self, the totality of who you are, breaking into the locked, protected house of your ego. It's the sudden insight, the moment of clarity, the crisis, or the rock bottom that arrives unexpectedly to wake you up. Peter, hearing this, asks the critical question, "Lord, is this parable meant for us or for everyone?" And the reply he receives is the story at the heart of our crisis. The Lord replied, "Who then is the faithful and prudent steward whom the master will put in charge of his servants to distribute the food allowance at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master on arrival finds doing so. Truly I say to you, he will put him in charge of all his property." Let's translate this through a Jungian lens. This is not a story about an external God and a human. This is a story about you. It's a map of your own psyche. The master is not an angry figure in the sky. The master is the self. The self, in Jungian terms, is the regulating center of your entire psyche, the totality of who you are, conscious and unconscious. It is your deepest, wisest, most authentic nature. It is your total, unrealized potential. This is the master who entrusts you with so much. And who are you in this story? You are the faithful and prudent steward. The steward is the ego. The ego is your conscious mind, your sense of I. The master has put the ego in charge of the house. What is the house? Your life, your body, your psychic energy. Your ego's job is not to be the master, but to serve the master. And what is the job? To distribute the food allowance at the proper time. This is a beautiful metaphor. The servants are all the different parts of your psyche. Your creative drive, your physical needs, your emotional life, your spiritual longing. Your ego's job is to be a prudent steward of your energy, to feed your creativity, to honor your body's need for rest, to engage with your emotions, to feed your soul. When the ego is aligned with the self, the house is in order. You are faithful to your own potential. You feel integrated, purposeful, and alive. And the promise is that when the master arrives, when you achieve that alignment, you will be put in charge of all his property. You gain access to the full power and wisdom of the self. But then, the story pivots. It gives us the most accurate description of procrastination and self-sabotage ever written. But if that servant says to himself, "My master is delayed in coming," and begins to beat the men servants and the maid servants, to eat and drink and get drunk. This is the moment. This is the psychological atom bomb. My master is delayed in coming. My potential can wait. My health can wait. I'll write that book next year. I'll deal with my trauma later. I'll start tomorrow. The instant the ego believes the self isn't watching, the instant it separates itself from its larger purpose, it abdicates its role as steward. And what happens? The house falls into chaos. But it's a specific kind of chaos. The ego begins to beat the men servants and the maid servants. When you are out of alignment with yourself, you become cruel. You lash out at your colleagues, your partner, your friends, and most of all, yourself. That inner critic that beats you down for being lazy, that is the unfaithful steward, lashing out in a panic because it has abandoned its post. And then, to eat and drink and get drunk. This is the why of addiction. This is the why of self-sabotage. It's not just getting drunk. It's doom scrolling for 4 hours. It's binge watching a show you don't even like. It's pornography. It's comfort eating. It's any activity you use to numb the anxiety of your unlived potential. In Jungian terms, this is the shadow taking over. The shadow is everything we've repressed about ourselves. When the faithful steward, the ego, is not consciously managing the house in service to the self, the repressed energies, the servants, don't just go away. They revolt. The shadow breaks down the door and takes over. The getting drunk is the ego's desperate, last-ditch attempt to silence the call of the self, to numb the pain of its own abdication. You are not getting drunk because you are weak. You are getting drunk because you are avoiding. You are avoiding the master who has entrusted you with so much. And what happens next? Then that servant's master will come on an unexpected day and at an unknown hour and will punish the servant severely and assign him a place with the unfaithful. This is the part that has been used to inspire fear for centuries, but let's look at it psychologically. The master's arrival is not a future apocalypse. It is now. It is the thief in the night. It's the 3 a.m. panic attack. It's the sudden, overwhelming wave of depression. It's the moment your partner finally leaves. It's the diagnosis from the doctor. It is the consequence that shatters your illusion. It is the self, your own psyche, forcing you to become conscious. The self will be heard. If you don't listen to the whisper, you will get the scream. And the severe punishment? This is the masterstroke of the entire parable. That servant who knew his master's will but did not make preparations nor act in accord with his will shall be beaten severely. And the servant who was ignorant of his master's will but acted in a way deserving of a severe beating shall be beaten only lightly. This is not external damnation. This is a precise diagnosis of internal anxiety and guilt. The servant who was ignorant is the person who is simply unconscious. They don't know their potential. They act out, but they feel beaten only lightly. They don't have that deep existential guilt. But the servant who knew his master's will, that's you. That's the person watching this video. You know you have a master's will. You know you have a purpose. You know you were meant for more than just getting by. And because you know, your beating is severe. The anxiety you feel is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign of your consciousness. The depression, the self-loathing, the guilt you feel after a night of self-sabotage. That is the severe beating. You are not being punished by God. You are being punished by your own awareness. You are inflicting this pain on yourself because you are betraying your own known potential. The parable ends with the most profound and perhaps most challenging line of all. Much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more. You feel so much anxiety, you feel so much pressure, because you have been entrusted with much. Your capacity for consciousness is vast. Your potential is immense. This is not a curse. It is your destiny. The problem is that you have been trying to live the life of the ignorant servant, a life of simple, unconscious comfort, while possessing the consciousness of the knowing servant. And the two are incompatible. The anxiety is the friction between your potential and your reality. So what do we do? How do we become the faithful and prudent steward? The answer is not more self-discipline, not more willpower, not more beating ourselves into submission. That is just the unfaithful steward trying to regain control. The answer is to stop saying, "My master is delayed." The answer is to act as if the master is always here, because the self is always present. Your potential is not a future event. It is a present reality waiting to be embodied. The path forward is to become the prudent steward who distributes the food allowance at the proper time. This means practicing conscious alignment. Instead of waiting for the 3 a.m. panic attack, you create space for the self now. This looks practical. It means, instead of scrolling to numb your creative frustration, you give that servant its allowance. 10 minutes of journaling. Instead of drinking to escape your loneliness, you give that servant its allowance. You call a friend. Instead of lashing out at your partner, you give that servant its allowance. You sit with your anger for 5 minutes and ask it what it needs. You stop beating the parts of yourself you don't like, and you start feeding them. You tend to the needs of your own psyche before they become so starved that they burn the house down. This parable is not a threat. It is an invitation. It is the self, the master of your psyche, telling you exactly how to find peace. The severe beating of your anxiety is not a punishment. It is a guide. It is a precise, painful signal telling you exactly where you have abandoned your post. The call to consciousness, the thief in the night, is not something to be feared. It is the promise of integration. The master wants to return. The self wants you to be whole. It wants to put you in charge of all his property. The anxiety you feel about your potential is not a sign you are failing. It is a sign you have been entrusted with something magnificent. Your job isn't to escape it. Your job is to steward it. Be the steward. Distribute the food. The master is already here.